Well, hello and welcome to Read the Bible with me. I'm Stan Jr., and today we're looking at chapter 13, the last chapter of the book of Nehemiah. As we look at this verse, I want to thank and invite anybody that's new here for being here. And I want to thank you for being here and invite you to click the subscribe button and stay a little longer. If you like reading the Bible, this is a great place to be. We read the Bible every day at 7 a.m. And so if you are interested in doing that, you can click the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell. If you're a Bible Club member, thank you so much because you make all of this happen. And so I'm grateful for every single one of you that give that $10 a month as a patron to help us send Bibles to persecuted Christians around the world. I don't want to get I don't want to get used to saying that. I think it's amazing that we can do this, that God has given us the technology to actually send Bibles to people that really need them, that are persecuted and live in crazy situations, hostile situations. And we can bless our brothers and sisters in Christ even though we can't physically touch them. We also send missionaries on the mission field each month. So I'm grateful for your dedication and your consideration with giving to this ministry. Thank you. Let's look at chapter 13. If you're a Bible Club member, please like this video and leave a comment below. I always forget to say that. Like this video, leave a comment below. Looking at the last chapter of the book of Nehemiah. So we talked about the dedication of the wall and the service at the temple, the people that served in the temple during the dedication, sang songs and got happy and glad about what the Lord had done for them. Let's look at chapter 13, verse 1. On that day, they read from the book of Moses in the hearing of the people. And it was found written that no Ammonite or Moabite should ever enter the assembly of God, for they did not meet the people of Israel with bread and water, but hired Balaam against them to curse them. Yet our God turned the curse into a blessing. As soon as the people heard the law, they separated from Israel all those of foreign descent. So there were some people that they could not even be friends with in a way, because when they came into their country and their city, let me get the names right here. The Ammonite and the Moabites hired a false prophet to curse them. But whenever he tried to curse them, we read this before together, whenever he tried to curse them, only blessings could come out of his mouth, because you cannot curse what God has blessed. Verse 4, now before this, Eliashib, the priest, who was appointed over the chambers of the house of our God, and who was related to Tobiah, prepared for Tobiah a large chamber where they had previously put the grain offering and the frankincense in the vessels, and the tithes of grain, the wine and oil, which were given by the commandment of the Levites, singers and gatekeepers, and the contributions for the priests. While this was taking place, I was not in Jerusalem, for in the 32nd year of Artaxerxes, king of Babylon, I went to the king, and after some time I asked leave of the king, and came to Jerusalem. And then I discovered the evil that Eliashib had done for Tobiah, preparing for him a chamber in the courts of the house of God. He turned the house of God into a house for Tobiah. Terrible. And I was very angry. And I threw all the household furniture of Tobiah out of the chamber. So Nehemiah was actually one of the first people to tear something up. It wasn't Jesus. Remember when Jesus found them selling selling goods and making money with the church? He tore the church up. He flipped tables over. And he wasn't the only one to do that, because we see here Nehemiah found out that Tobiah turned the Lord's house into his house. And he said, I was very angry. I threw all the house furniture of Tobiah out of the chamber. I gave orders, and they cleansed the chambers. And I brought back there the vessels of the house of God with the grain offering and the frankincense. You've got to be just as fed up with people taking the house of God and the dwelling place of God and making it something it should not be. You've got to be just as passionate about that like Nehemiah was. I also found out that the portions of the Levites had not been given to them, so that the Levites and the singers who did the work and had fled each to his field. So I confronted the officials and said, "Why is the house of God forsaken?" And I gathered them together and set them in the stations. Then all Judah brought the tithe and the grain, the wine and oil into the storehouse. And I appointed as treasurers over the storehouses Shelemiah the priest, Zadok the scribe, and Pedaiah of the Levites, and as their assistant Hanan, the son of Zakur, son of Mattaniah, for they were considered reliable, and their duty was to distribute to their brothers. And so we see here that people didn't want to pay tithes and offerings back then either. It's not a new thing that people don't want to give money to the church. This is something that's old. And so he says in verse 14, "Remember me, O my God, concerning this. Do not wipe out my good deeds that I have done for the house of my God and for his service." In those days I saw in Judah people treading wine presses on the Sabbath, and bringing in heaps of grain and loading them on donkeys, and also wine, grapes, figs, and all kinds of loads, which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. And I warned them on the day when they sold food. Tyrians also, who lived in the city, brought in fish and all kinds of goods and sold them on the Sabbath to the people of Judah in Jerusalem itself. Then I confronted the nobles of Judah and said to them, "What is this evil thing that you are doing, profaning the Sabbath day? Do not your fathers act in this way? And did not our God bring all this disaster on us and on this city? Now you are bringing more wrath on Israel by profaning the Sabbath." So he's saying, you guys got to get it together. We just dedicated the walls. As soon as it began to grow dark at the gates of Jerusalem before the Sabbath, I commanded that the doors should be shut and gave orders that they should not be opened until after the Sabbath. And I stationed some of my servants at the gates, that no load might be brought in on the Sabbath day. Then the merchants and the sellers of all kinds of wars lodged outside Jerusalem once or twice, but I warned them and said to them, "Why do you lodge outside the wall? If you do so again, I will lay hands on you." If you do so again. From that time on, they did not come on the Sabbath. Then I commanded the Levites that they should purify themselves and come and guard the gates to keep the Sabbath day holy. Remember, this is also in my favor, O my God, and spare me according to the greatness of your steadfast love. And Nehemiah is always reminding God of the good things that he's done. In those days also I saw the Jews who had married women of Ashdod, Ammon, and Moab, and half of their children spoke the language of Ashdod. They could not speak the language of Judah. So he's like, they've lost their culture, but only the language of each people. And I confronted them and cursed them and beat some of them and pulled out their hair. And I made them take oath in the name of God, saying, "You shall not give your daughters to their sons, or take their daughters for your sons or for yourselves." Now this is a vow that they committed to God. Right? This is not something God told him to go do, beating people up and stuff like that. So now at this point, I think Nehemiah has served his time and he's getting frustrated with dealing with the same people. It's kind of like if you taught at a high school, there are more of the kids start getting frustrated and aggravated with each other towards the end of the year because they just been around each other too long and it's time for summer break, if you know what I mean. So he's been doing this a little too long and his, power's kind of going to his head now. And he says, "Did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin on account of such women? Among the many nations there was no king like him, and he was beloved by his God, and God made him king over Israel. Nevertheless, foreign woman made even him to sin." So that's a good point. But what he doesn't say is that it wasn't the language that he took on from these foreign women. It was the gods that he took on from his foreign women. So that's a big difference. But he says, "Shall we then listen to you and do all this great evil and act treacherously against our God by marrying foreign women?" And one of the sons of Jehoiada, the son of Eliashib, the high priest, was the son-in-law of Sanballat, the Horonite. You know, Sanballat was one of Nehemiah's arch enemies. He didn't want him to succeed in building that wall. Therefore, I chased him from me. Remember them, O my God, because they have desecrated the priesthood and the covenant and the priesthood and the Levites. Thus I cleansed them from everything foreign, and I established the duties of the priest and the Levites, each in his work. And I provided for the wood offering at appointed times and for fruit and first fruits. Remember me, O my God, for good. Always asking the Lord to remember him. I think at this point, Nehemiah has gone off the deep end. His concerns are right, but the way he's dealing with them are not correct. And that could be like us a lot of times. We have been walking with the Lord for a long time, and we want to see people do their best. We want to see people live lives of holiness. And sometimes when we talk to them or we direct our attention to them, we don't do it how we should. And it comes from a good place, but when it comes out, it could be, harsh. So we got to work on that, like Nehemiah had to as well. So thank you so much for reading the Bible with me. We are just finished our last chapter of Nehemiah. I can't wait to see what God has for us next. And I want you to stay tuned and continue to read the Bible with me every day at 7 a.m. Remember, you can support the ministry by becoming a patron. If you like the teaching and you appreciate the daily teaching of the Word of God, go ahead and support the ministry so you keep us on and you keep us active and you keep us being able to present good quality material to you on YouTube and other places. Thank you for believing in this ministry and helping us do great works, sending Bibles, sending missionaries. That's all. All right. Love y'all, and I'll see you next time. God bless you. Peace.